Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Story Studio podcast. And I will just say that for those of you who are joining us now, first of all, congratulations on joining us now rather than earlier. But we did a worst show ever, which is why you didn't want to be here early. And
Believe me, that was your best move.
We started right on time. I think it's ironic that doing our stupid show first is probably going to keep us because we were always starting 5 minutes late. We're going to start on time now. Kind of neat. Because of that
Dave,
stupid piece of shit.
I'm glad your pageantry of agitation and rage has kept us on track.
That's
so if you want
my autobiography title,
if you have some things you want Dave to rage about, you guys just let us know. But today on the Story Studio podcast, we're going to talk about, we call this maintaining what matters through continuous evolution, which is basically, from our perspective, as we've matured as a studio, as we've gone through more and more stuff, and this would be true for individuals as well, just on a different sort of scale and scope. There are things that, the indie landscape is constantly changing. We make the joke about indie publishing years. And so you have to make pivots, but there's a fine line between pivoting sort of on a knee-jerk reaction, and that can, on the one side, that could be like trend chasing, and pivoting in ways that are intelligent because you're actually looking at the information and not dogmatically sticking to something just because you began it once upon a time. And so that's something we want to talk about, and just stick with us for a bit because we have an announcement to make today too that is part of this discussion, and I think will serve as kind of a centerpiece. That I don't know. What do you think about that, Sean? Should we lead with that? Should we? Because it's the example that we had for this.
No, I actually like. Just if we're talking good storytelling anyway. Nice little mystery box. Hey, we'll open that later. But I do think that we should wait because it's not really the focus. The focus is the message, and that is our very best example. And we've actually had a lot of examples of it in the last 18 months. It's been consistent. And this is our, I'd say, latest and greatest example of that. It exemplifies a lot of stuff. But I would make it a part of the conversation instead of the whole conversation.
Okay, so what would you add to my intro there about evolution, maintaining what matters, keeping that core thing that you try to get into something doing? How do we run into that?
Well, I think that for us, this has been a very steady drumbeat. In fact, yesterday, Johnny and I were supposed to write our bios because we're redoing our entire site, and we have, we're actually, so I don't know if we talked at all about Danny, who we've worked with for years and years and years, and he's going in and doing just a lot of site work on our big engine, and he gave us a big giant audit, and basically said that if he wanted to, he could use us as a case study on what not to do. And it's because we haven't cared about our online.
I like how you made that sound a lot less blunt than it was.
it was blunt. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do there, but it's really
blunt
exciting.
And true. Just to be clear.
No, it was great. I think that Johnny and I are very much, we've always been like this, but I don't think we've ever been more like this. We need to know when our baby is ugly, right? You can't just tell us everything is awesome if it's not. And knowing how broken our website is, and, all the stuff that we have almost proudly not paid attention to in the most ludicrous way, we came from, a very SEO driven, I don't know, we just came from a different space, and we wanted to get into storytelling, and we really turned a blind eye to some things that don't matter and a lot of things that do. And so Danny's come in and given us directives. And one of them a couple of days ago was, hey, can you guys each write your own bio? Because what you have here is ludicrous. And I needed to be 500 words, and there were some requirements. And both of us hate writing product descriptions. It's pretty much the thing that we like doing least. It's definitely one of those. We can write a book. It's easier for both Johnny and myself, I think, to write 100,000 word book than it is to sit down and write the product description for that book once it's done.
Yeah.
And so it's just not anything we enjoy. And I really don't like, as much as I like talking, I really don't like writing about myself. It's just, I don't. And essentially what this is a product description about yourself. That's what a bio is. And so I got the idea, hey, Johnny, why don't you write mine and I'll write yours? and then we just swap, and that seems like it would be easier for both of us.
Who's writing mine?
Well,
this guy named Satan, do you know him?
Oh yeah.
I think probably, I don't actually know the answer to this, but Danny's reasoning is probably he doesn't do anything. He doesn't need a bio. I don't think you need one.
Fuck Danny.
I think
too.
No, Dave definitely does need a bio because he's one of the big faces of the company.
I think we should be in charge of writing yours also. But I will happily take that assignment. I don't think that it sounds. In fact, I think we should have an internal contest and see who gets to write Dave's. It should be like a raffle or like some kind of a merit-based, prize. Anyway,
can you get a merit badge in that?
I think we could.
It's got a fist on it.
Okay. It just didn't need to do that.
Call back.
But anyway,
that's a reward for the people that watch both shows.
even our bios really did have this theme that we're cutting back, and my theme on my bio is basically, for a long time I wasn't very good at letting Johnny do his job because I was always pivoting. I was always, hey, wouldn't this idea be great? Instead of focusing on what we were.
And hence doing. A lot of Johnny's job became saying no, which isn't a fun job.
Right. And so now we're in a really good place where we are saying yes to a lot of things, but they're all the right things and they're all internal things, and the external distractions have really gone away. And each time we have a new question to answer, it just becomes a lot more obvious what the right thing to do is, because we have a steady procession of appropriate decisions instead of impulsivity or all the other things that drove us for several years. I mean, in the early days, it was fun. Like we could hop from one idea to the next, and there were very little consequences for that. And as long as we were always able to kind of feed ourselves and stay ahead of the curve, we were fine. But the entire landscape, not just of indie publishing, has changed, but for our business. And at this point, it's just ludicrously irresponsible to chase our whims. Because we've got authors, we have a lot of people that we're taking care of in an actual business that is working. And so we just have to ask ourselves, is this what we want? Is this what we're doing because it became the habit or what we've always done? Or is this what we're doing because it serves us right now? It serves all the people who are believing in us, and it serves us for the next X number of years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I made some jokes when writing Sean's bio because it's an interesting dichotomy that all of the, like, Sterling and Stone exists because of Sean and his ideas. And most of the really great things that have happened are because of Sean and his ideas. And the fact that we're able to maintain it are because of Sean and his ideas. However, mixed in with that was a lot of shit that we needed to throw over the fence. And at the beginning, it was really hard to kind of figure that out, because every opportunity can be exciting to the Seans of the world, whereas I approach things with a little more trepidation, but then left to my own devices, we wouldn't do a lot of the shit. So it is a fine balance, finding the opportunities that are worth pursuing and the opportunities that aren't worth pursuing. And I think that we've had to tune into that litmus a little bit more lately, because, I mean, this will be sort of a side story, and maybe this probably will go into the announcement we wanted to make, is without giving details, because we're not actually allowed to really talk about this yet, and I'll try to make this as minimal a ball buster as I can. But we had, let's just say, a really, really great opportunity, but one that would have required 6 weeks of our time. We would have had to travel. We would have had to relocate for a short period of time, but it was an amazing opportunity, but it would have consumed us for 6 weeks. We decided not to do that. And we would have gotten paid for it. So on top of everything, we would have gotten paid a pretty decent chunk of money for it. But we decided not to do that because, despite it being a great opportunity, our attention and focus was needed on the studio, which is something that in the past we haven't always listen to. Like, we have chased shiny pennies a little bit more in the past, but we've trimmed down. And you guys who listen to this regularly know that we closed the Smarter Artist last year, which means we closed down our old mastermind. We closed down the summit, boot camp, any courses we were doing, any retreats that we were doing. And so we were just really focused on the few things that were left, mainly story. And we needed to put our attention on that and not on something else because the machine is still getting up and going. So we turned down this amazing opportunity because we knew that our attention was needed elsewhere. So that was what was matters versus opportunity. Like opportunity is constant. And there were really only two things that remained: the studio, so writing all of our books and producing scripts and whatever else we're doing for story, and Story Shop. And how do you want to, do you want to tell this next part, Sean? But we basically, we've continued to make decisions to trim things, like to
well, yeah, it became a thing where we really need to know our North Star. We really need to have our compass, and we had to ask ourselves very hard questions, like, are we doing the thing that we're supposed to be doing? And it's not just, I mean, the way the company used to run, it would be, I'd have a crazy idea, I'd talk Johnny into it, we wouldn't tell Dave, he'd find out later, usually during a live show with whatever.
Wait, I'm going to wrestle a bear naked?
Stuff like that.
Like you aren't going to do that anyway.
Well, not for pay.
This time we're just, we're much more intentional. I mean, down to the point where there's stuff like, there was kind of a slow creep that it's happening. Like the fact that we have
slow creep
minutes now, right? Like, and Neve started making agendas for our meetings beforehand, and then minutes for afterwards, which is like awesome to actually go back and reference it.
Well, it's a perfect example of something that we never would have done, and that absolutely needs to be done. And if it relied on us in any way, it wouldn't happen. So yes. It's beautiful that she has done those things for us.
But there's two sides to that. You can't have these amazing quality people come into your life and your business and structure things around and then not treat that with respect. And so anytime that is a subtraction from us, like, we have to address that. And our time really is finite. And one of the things, it wasn't just that Story Shop was requiring some of our attention. It really wasn't that. It's that working with Story Shop, there was a whole part of our business that was just waiting for it to finish.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, because I feel like there's a missing piece of information here without which.
Yeah, I'm just not there yet.
Okay.
So we're trying this whole time to get to Story Shop and have one infrastructure where all of our stories are there. So we've got all different storytellers, but they're all on different platforms. Our editors aren't able to go in there. From a planning and canon control basis, that's why this thing was invented in the first place. But we found ourselves in a spot where every time we were looking for Story Shop updates, how is this going to play? When are we going to be able to migrate everybody over? And it became something that wasn't happening. And so we eventually came to a point where we realized we're not getting to where we want in a couple of different ways. So first of all, we're dividing our attention and putting it into bringing Story Shop along, but it wasn't at a place where we could effectively do our jobs. Like when we found partners, the idea was, okay, you guys make the software as amazing as you possibly can. We'll onboard our people, we'll use it, and because we're using it so effectively, we'll be the most natural evangelists in the world. And that really is, on paper, that sounds great. But the problem is that the software never got to that place, and we're standing in the way. Because now Story Shop has divided attention. Are they trying to please us to try to get it to a place where it works for our studio? Or are they trying to create software that works for its user base first? And our timeline is affecting their timeline, and how much attention we can give it affects that. And so we just had to look at ourselves very honestly and say, does this serve us? And, who are we trying to serve ultimately? And we're definitely a company that wants to always do what we say and pay our debts and respond to the things that we promise. And so we really had to look at this and say, what is the ultimate score on Story Shop? Because we have there's a lot of touch points there. There's the promise that we made to our studio and this tool that we were going to have. There's promises that we made to teams and to investors and to all of our early backers and to the community at large. and to ourselves. So we need to weigh all of that stuff. And ultimately, we realized that Story Shop would be better off, and we would be better off if we just stopped. Like, we just were willing to let it go. And that's the hardest part. I think it's really hard for creatives, especially, well, anybody. You invest your belief, your time, your money. And for us, Story Shop was all of those things. I mean, we poured a lot of money into it collectively. We poured years, we poured a lot of belief, faith, time, all of it. And to walk away from that after 5 years is difficult. But I think with what we've learned over the last few years, it would have been way more difficult to ignore the right thing when we knew it was the right thing and it was staring at us.
What's your reaction to this, Dave? I feel like you did know this one, right? At least, like, this isn't a surprise that we're divorcing ourselves from Story Shop.
Oh,
it is an unfortunate divorce. You're surprised you didn't know?
Well, I figured it was coming.
How did we not let Dave know? Like, it's signed, sealed, and delivered. Like, this isn't even like we just made the decision.
Yeah, I actually know why. Because there was no need.
It's because Dave hated that color so much, isn't it?
Well, yeah, like, because Dave wasn't going to have any impact on the decision.
No.
And there's just a lot of, like, catching him up that has to happen. I mean, actually, this is a great illustration here. So the fact that Dave doesn't even know what's going on with Story Shop, plus or minus one way or the other, or the fact that we wouldn't even include him in the decision, is just like, well, it's because the stuff that we're including Dave in is the story stuff. It's the stuff that matters to the company. It's what matters to him. It's what matters to the future. And what's kind of funny is that the version of the company that we have right now is actually the version Dave wanted many years ago. We just had to take a very long, circuitous route to get back to this place where
let's waste a whole bunch of money on stuff. Yeah.
Yes, but so we have a very amicable relationship. There's no animus between us and Story
We'll
Shop.
still be speaking at the Story Shop Summit next year.
Yeah.
Nobody asked me to go to that, by the way.
Yeah, I think they actively don't want you there. Actually, I think that's what they said. Yes, but so with Story Shop, we're still we're not partners anymore. But I mean, I still don't think there's anybody in the world who wants Story Shop to perform more than we do. And when it gets to its level that we all hope that it will get to, we will sign up and we'll be its biggest power users. But we couldn't wait for it anymore because it was causing too much inertia within our company. We were stalled on decisions that we had to make to get 20 of us going forward, and our time and our momentum are the most valuable assets we have right now. And so really, like, whatever, I think all of us listening have had some project at some point, and you put something into it, and it's really, really easy to get trapped into sunk cost fallacy and pulling yourself up out of that and say, okay, what is my actual goal here? What am I trying to accomplish? And if we were allegiant to the same goals we had 5 years before we had figured ourselves out as a company, or before we had such an amazing team, then we would have erred. And so this is the right thing, and the timing isn't super awesome because, I mean, software is hard. Software is really hard, and we're not software people, which is another thing. It's one of those stay in your lane.
Yeah, that's why it always bothered me, because I think that you all underestimated how much effort it actually takes. And I don't design software, but I follow enough game developers to know just how many fucking things can go wrong all the time.
And they did,
consistently throughout the thing. And I mean, we had some really great people involved in this. There are still great people involved in this. But I don't think it was at a place where we were helping it along anymore. If anything, Sterling and Stone's association with Story Shop might have been hindering it, because we're not contributing a ton of time. We're not contributing any money. And like, our needs need to be met, when really, to get that software off the ground, it needs to come user first. It needs to come community first. And so, we'll find we'll find a temporary solution, and hopefully StoryShop is our permanent solution. We're still looking and figuring that out now. But the point is that by removing that element, we're not even paying attention to it anymore. We're able to focus on, really planning for next year, which has been our primary drive in the company for the last month, and without having to juggle this other thing that's just kind of always been in the background. And, we have specific calendar time to like test things and put it through the ringer. And we don't really have projects that work with that. So a lot of times it would just be lost hours that couldn't be assigned to any other project or drive us along. And another thing that we're really trying hard to do in the studio very consistently, and that anyone listening to this should try to do this, is use the whole animal. Like if you're using something, if there's some project that you're engaged in, then try to use it twice. So for example, I'm writing a short story with Dave right now for one of our series. And while writing that, while in the middle of that construction, I was writing another article on how to write a short story. And I was using the elements of the short story I was writing to help construct that piece, because it made both pieces go faster. And so when it comes to the company now, we really are trying to use the whole animal and make sure that, hey, if we have conversation A over here or initiative A over here, it's really serving this larger picture. And StoryShop was the one thing in our company where that was always the exception. We could never make it just part of what we were doing. It was always this outlier. And
right. And the contrast is the opportunity that I mentioned is once we started to put those, because it was real easy with slippage with StoryShop, because there was a lot of sunk costs there, and our obligation to StoryShop wasn't so demanding that it like would unhinge us by itself, right? It wasn't like it wasn't immediately obvious. But when we started to put the two side by side, when we had this amazing opportunity, and I wish I could tell you guys what it is. Let's just say it's amazing. And we will tell you eventually, hopefully. When we put that side by side with StoryShop, and we said all the things that we're saying, like reluctantly, like, oh, we can't do that really cool thing because of this and this and this. And then we looked over at StoryShop and said, wait a minute, then why are we doing this? Like this side by side comparison just made it really apparent that all the focus that we would lose doing the really cool thing, we were also losing with StoryShop, all the, the time and the alignment issues and the divided focus of the team. So, I mean, it is kind of a bittersweet thing, because while we will maintain, amicable relationships, and we're still going to speak at the summit, we're no longer associated with it at all. Like it's no longer a Sterling and Stone joint at all. It is its own thing. I mean, we had to make that decision. It was the only sensible thing to do. And I think that's what a lot of maturing as a business, even if you're a solopreneur, is about, is making those hard decisions if you know that they're right, even if they suck.
Yeah, I don't know if this is quite right, but I think it was John Morrow who wrote something on Copyblogger like a million years ago. I want to say 8 years ago, 10 years ago maybe. I don't know. But it was about, it was exactly this, and it was about shooting your horse in the head when you need to. It had a very graphic
That sounds like something John would say.
Yeah, right. That's why I'm thinking it was John. The metaphor was loud. But that's exactly what it was about.
Are you sure he didn't say shoot your Eeyore in the head?
He actually did say that. But the idea is that, I mean, it's similar. Like for authors, we have books. In fact, actually, Johnny, I don't know if you want to talk about this. I know you don't want to talk about it in any depth, at least not right now, but you had your own personal story shop lately. Do you want to brush on that at all?
If you can help me figure out what the hell you're talking about, sure.
Yeah. The thing you threw away, like you had to, like.
I think I talked about this. I'm trying to figure out the comparison to Story Shop though, and help me with that. And then
Well, sure. It's just the amount of. I'm talking about sunk costs.
Sunk costs.
So in John's post, it was about how you could have. I mean, back in the day, this is when people believed they could start a blog and it'd be profitable in a year. Right?
So was it far enough back in time that people used to watch Faces of Death with their grandchildren? Because I heard that happened in the olden days too.
I did hear that happen in the olden days. It wasn't quite that old. But it was, like Dave and I at the time probably had 10 blogs. Like, it was a very regular thing that we did because registering a domain was easy. And I had Dave who would, put a WordPress design up pretty fast.
Hey, I want to write this thing, but it doesn't really fit in the blog I already have. Start a new one. All right, awesome.
Yeah, right. But
hey, I want to make fun of Johnny. I should start a blog.
But true story. But we ended up closing a lot of them. And I found that article that John wrote really helpful because he was saying, like, it doesn't matter what you put into it. You could write every day for your blog, and then 2 years later, there's still no traffic. Just because you wrote every day for 2 years doesn't make the blog worth keeping. But it's very easy to think that way. And Johnny just had a book where, it's the first time we got to this far and we pulled what we call a Dave by just throwing the whole thing away and starting over. And Dave has worked that way many times. Johnny and I haven't.
I threw out my child when he disobeyed me and started over.
We don't throw away. Like, we can get 2/3 in and then we figure out clever ways to make the story work and agree with what we had before. But we got too far and couldn't do that and had to throw it away and start over. And it was painful. But the worst thing we possibly could have done for that project was to just keep going because we'd already had all this
And we
work.
did try. I mean, again, I think I told the punchline of this story before, which is that I threw away something like 90,000 words or something. It was a full length book that I threw away. But the reason is because we tried to save it a bunch of times. And I mean, to what Sean said, that's very, very true, that we have kind of a history and almost like a proud, we will do it this way sort of a way of approaching these things, where we would try to course correct and, well, it'll work out. We'll just have some extra stuff to trim, or we'll make those early things make sense. But the narrative was missing some really important stuff, which I'd like to fully dissect once this project is a real thing in the world. And I think it would be really instructive to dissect this. It became apparent that there was going to be more pain trying to keep course correcting after 80 or 90,000 words, to keep course correcting, keep trying to make it work, or to go back to word one and revise it with new ideas in mind and just seed stuff. And it was a painful gut check to go, I'm just going to throw it away. But it happened easily because we had tried everything else, and those didn't work, and they were more painful. And I was just, I mean, I'm a little PTSD over this. Like, this story is still giving me some trouble, even though it's going much better now. Psychologically, just because I know, like, this has taken months, this story, like it should have been done forever ago. And that was just getting so painful.
We thought this would be one of our most efficient projects ever, just based on a few elements and the way it was constructed and the partnerships that lined up for it. And it was really cool. But we started this in February. And
that makes me so sad. I mean, that's when we say we started development on it. I didn't start writing it in February, but when did I start writing it? It was maybe
it was right
mid-summer.
when we got back. It was when we got back from Cincinnati. So sometime in May.
Yeah, that's wow. That makes me very sad. Because normally I can crank out a book in a lot less time than that. That's absurd.
I think it makes Dave pretty happy though. So let's give him a win.
Well, I mean, that's fine. Like, in all honesty, like, I kind of like the idea that this is, I mean, even though I'm the subject of this, even the power writers fail sort of a thing, like, even though that sucks, it is nice because, we do get people who are like, oh, well, you guys just soldier on. You don't have any troubles. Well, no, this is a particularly sticky problem.
Right. And I think that's the takeaway that we want anybody listening to have, because nobody here has your own story shop. And if you do, awesome, I guess. But you all have your own projects, and you have projects that maybe have gotten too big or spiraled out of control or had some kind of scope creep that, you're really questioning whether to double down or let it go. But just be honest with yourself. What story are you trying to tell? What outcome are you trying to get? What problem are you trying to solve for? And it's possible you're just doing the same thing because that's just what you've done so far.
Yeah, a lot of times, when I'm in a story and I realize I've screwed it up and I don't want to start over because I, don't want to miss deadline. But then like with the most recent story, I was like, this is really missing some key things. And if I just continue to make it work, it won't really work.
Yeah. But that's the story that we start believing, and then it undermines our actual objectives. We need to be more, I don't know, just more aware, more conscientious,
Well,
and
pull back and look at it as it really is versus, your opinions on it based on your efforts.
well, then there's emotions too. You've got responsibility and guilt and just a lot of stuff that's tied into the picture. But it I don't know. I think it blunts your practicality.
Blunt, right? All right. Of course, you went there. So just to wrap up
4 minutes early.
To wrap up the story shop piece here, we'd be a little remiss if we didn't tie up some of the loose ends, because guys, for you OGs, we've been talking about Story Shop for years. There was the Kickstarter. There was a lead up to the Kickstarter. There was, then we fucked some stuff up and had to communicate a bunch of that. And then we were rebuilding it, and then we gave it to another team, and then we merged with the Story Shop guys. That they were formerly Fiction Vortex, or they may still be, I'm not sure. So there is it may feel like there's some fallout here. And the bottom line is that anything Story Shop related, nothing actually changes. So if you're a Story Shop subscriber, nothing changes. Like, you just keep on using it. Story Shop University is still a great resource. Like, go get it. But we're just not
will, I'm sure, continue to get better over time.
Right. So, and if you're attending the Story Shop Summit in, I believe it's February, we're still speaking at that. So, and we'll still be there hanging out and stuff. So nothing actually changes for you guys. It changes for us, and it changes in terms of we're disentangled. So, like, when you don't think Story Shop and Sterling and Stone anymore, like, now Story Shop is its own company, they will continue to handle it. They got it.
Yeah, but if you're a user of Story Shop, then the odds of it getting better and improving and being the software that you've been waiting for are actually going up, not down, because there's more focus. They're able to do things with us leaving that they wouldn't have been able to with us staying, and so that bodes well for the future also.
And as far as just takeaways in general for you guys on this whole topic of sunk costs and maintaining what matters and evolving and all that, is I think that one of the things we'd like to make sure that everybody gets out of this is that you need to have, let me take a slight diversion. So in that story that was so mired in difficulty and that I threw away a bunch of things, one of the things I was missing was a theme, a core thing that, like, what is this story about? And so there was nothing for me to return to, no compass. What is this story about? Well, I don't really know. Like, is it about freedom? Is it about family relationships or secrets? Or, when we're releasing a book kind of soon that I had a similar question. What is this book about? And we thought about it, and Sean said, I think it's about the secrets that we keep define us. And that was like, okay. So when I revised it, when I finished the book, I knew that, and I could turn to it. And that wasn't true with this book. So much like this decision about Story Shop, because I pitched that book because I had sunk cost, but I knew it was the right decision. We separated from Story Shop, even though we had sunk cost, because we knew it was the right decision. But that's because we figured out our theme, our central, what is this about? Like, our North Star is how Sean referred to it earlier. And so for us, we've said that we changed the world with story for, a couple of years now as sort of the North Star at Sterling and Stone. But then we would always be like, we change the world with story and have a software for sale. Or we change the world with story and we also educate smarter artists. And we always had a really good justification. Like, okay, change the world with story shop. Like, okay, well, they can change the world with story too, but not really, not in the way that we meant. So
there was always an asterisk.
Right, exactly. So pick a North Star, know what it is that you're about as an author, as a business person, and stick to it with some serious honesty, I would say.
Yeah, even if it's uncomfortable. And that's a big part of it too. Nothing about having to walk away is comfortable, because you want to see your dreams to the end. Like, that's just, I think, human nature. And walking away is just, it feels like defeat. But this didn't feel like defeat for us at all. I mean, we talked about it internally, and it was the right decision, and we all knew it was the right decision, and it was the right decision for our studio and for our community and for the software itself.
So, any final thoughts on this from either of you?
I mean, for me, I would beat the same drum. I just think that it's always worth asking yourself, you know, hey, what got us here isn't going to get us there. So have I changed?
And that requires unplugging and plugging back in. That's the thing. Like you don't realize that whole what got you here won't get you there. You don't realize that until you step back. That's why like a vacation is illustrative, or a new person coming into your life. Like that's why that's a light bulb moment, because you're in it. If you step back, that's usually where you go, oh, okay, I don't just keep doing what I'm doing. This is a new situation. Forget about everything that happened. This is a new situation. What do I do now?
Yeah, I actually confronted a lot of this just this week. It has nothing to do with Story Shop, actually, but it was the same exact situation where I was writing a book that I don't actually know without looking at the schedule, but I think it's coming out in about a month from now. It's a Stone Table release, and it's called A Tale of Two Authors. And it explores this kind of in depth, the idea of opportunity cost. And we actually just stole the concept straight up from Andre Chaperon, who has this thing called Frank and Matt. And it's basically two different marketers and the different way that they handle their online business. And it's, you know, one's doing it the wrong way and one's doing it a much, much better way. And we thought it was a really great exploration to take two authors who do that. You know, you've got one who's always chasing the genre, always chasing the shiny penny, and the other one who is very much more methodically, slowly turning the flywheel over a several-year period. And we follow these authors for a few years, and we see how divergent their paths are, even though they started in the same place. And
spoiler, they both die at the end. Everyone dies.
Yeah, the hardworking person ends up in a trunk because no hard work is rewarded, right, Dave?
Right.
And you know, the theme that I kept coming away, you know, from the story with is exactly that. You just can't get into sunk cost. You have to constantly be asking yourself, why did I get into this? What are the promises I made to myself? What are the promises I made to the people around me? And how has that all evolved? And what do I owe myself and my community right now? And asking ourselves what we owe ourselves and what we owe our community, I think really did serve us well this time and helped guide our compass. And, you know, we're really poised for a strong 2021 where we can both learn and share what we learn. And we just don't want anything impeding that.
Well, I think it works out ideally because you've got people taking it over that are capable of delivering, you know, the app that, you know, the people want. So us getting out of the way is truly us getting out of the way and letting them do it the correct way. I don't know.
All right.
That's just my limited knowledge of it.
No, that's very accurate. That's exactly what we were looking for with this. So I'll just do some housekeeping to clean things up, just to remind you guys, or to tell you, I guess, if you didn't hear me say this. We're now recording. If you're a live viewer, if you aren't a live viewer, then don't worry. You don't need to listen to this. Tune out for 30 seconds.
You're a dead viewer.
You're a dead viewer. If you watch us live, and we would encourage you to do so it will be more fun the more people who come, is we are recording at 3:45 Central Time for SSP most weeks. It used to be 3. So if you used to show up at 3, don't do that anymore. You're going to run into some sort of a dump truck of a show that we call Worst Show Ever. So 3:45.
Big mistake.
Come early.
If you want to get reminders of those or know when the times change, you can sign up to our list for live show reminders, which is sterlingandstone.net/live show. And we are releasing a lot of nonfiction books now that are really popular. Like we've gotten some really great feedback on these, which I like. And
you like good feedback, Johnny?
Well, I like that we're hitting the mark, and I do like good feedback. That is, if you want to get on that list and find out more, then that is sterlingandstone.net/stonetable. And I think, is the schedule accurate right now? Like next week is Endless Ideas. I think, or 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now, yes, but that is the next release.
Mark asks the important question: when does Horse Show ever start? 3 p.m. if you actually Central.
3 p.m. Central, yes.
But most people go by Eastern time. That's the correct time.
Wait, what?
4 p.m.
I will say that it's actually so.
Nobody knows Central. Come on.
Well, no, I agree. Central is kind of stupid because nobody pays attention to it. The first year we were down here, and it was New Year's Eve, and I was like, "Well, what the fuck do I do now? Like New Year's Eve in the Central Time Zone? Like you get New York.
It's not real. It's not real.
Yeah, you get New York where it's already happened. New York's like, hey, fuck you, we're already in 2019. Or you can watch LA where they're still partying because it hasn't happened yet. So I think you could do like Chicago, but nobody broadcasts that. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, I just checked the schedule. So Endless Ideas is the week after next, and then A Tale of Two Authors is for sure after that.
And then, in December, we have the Fiction Formula, which is going to be our really big release, the true follow-up to Write, Publish, Repeat. So, anyway, that's sterlingandstone.net/stonetable, because Stone Table is now the line of those books. So thanks, everybody, for listening to the episode. A bittersweet goodbye to Story Shop from Sterling and Stone's perspective, but it's in better hands. And
thanks for all the fish.
Thanks for all the fish. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Adios.